What's up, everyone? It's Dakota, and welcome back to another modern video. And today, of course, we're getting in gameplay with the non-Rakdos Scam deck. I absolutely, just as an aside from all this, as much fun as I have, when I fill out my deck list and stuff, and I'm playing like Yawgmoth or something like that, and I put a completely different name as like the other deck. It threw me through a loop because I thought for sure I'm pretty sure like this is the deck list I downloaded, and of course it is the four color Cascade Beanstalk deck. But I definitely got punked, played myself, all that. So is what it is. But today we're going to be playing, kind of go over, see some of the strengths, weaknesses, and all that. And this list is pretty interesting, and I guess kind of like the direction I figured this deck would kind of go, and just really interesting. So, uh, early on, right off the bat, of course, the namesake card is Up the Beanstalk, and it says when it enters the battlefield or whenever you cast a spell with mana value 5 or greater, you draw a card. And that card helps offset the cost of, playing Solitude and Fury for its alternate cost of exiling a card of that color from your hand. So the more beanstalks that you have in play, the more that you kind of offset that. One beanstalk, you're going to essentially get the card that you pitched back. Any more beanstalks in play, you essentially go +1. So if you have two beanstalks, you actually, you get rid of a red card and presumably the uh, pitch elemental that you have, and you get like both cards back. You have three beanstalks, you get +1 card essentially from that exchange. And this deck tries to kind of snowball that into, you know, playing like Shardless Agent, so you can cascade into Beanstalk straight up. You have Bloodbraid Elf, so you can cascade into, a Shardless Agent, which can then cascade into an Up the Beanstalk. You also have cards like Teferi Time Raveler and Cosmic Rebirth that you can cascade into. Cosmic Rebirth lets you choose a permanent card in your graveyard and put it back onto the battlefield. And if you don't put it onto the battlefield, you put it in your hand, you gain 3 life. So this can get like a land into play. So you could trigger like your Omnath and things like that. Obviously, like just being able to ramp pretty good. You play a decent amount of fetch lands here. You can get it up to Beanstalk if your opponent manages to get rid of it. You could also get back a Teferi Time Raveler and mess with other people that are playing Cascade and stuff like that. So really, really neat kind of addition to the deck. Cosmic Rebirth, I don't know if that was standard for it. You have a playset of like Fire Ice, two different arts on two different copies. You'd love to see it. Just getting to tempo your opponent by tapping one of their lands, getting to draw a card. Or just getting some of their 1 and 2 toughness creatures with the other half. Just some very good utility and very relevant to the format. We have one Lorien revealed. Obviously, you can kind of mana fix with it, or you can end up drawing 3 cards plus however many cards with how many Up the Beanstalks you have. Leyline Binding is another spell that kind of triggers the Beanstalk and ends up not really costing more than 5 because you can get Domain, by turn 2, and then you're casting this for free. Really nice to see. The last card, and I think the one that's the most interesting, is a place of Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. So with Cosmic Rebirth, I know we talked about definitely on the if it has a mana value 3 or less, you put it into play. But if it doesn't, you just put it into your hand. You gain a little bit of life. That's cool. And if you end up milling over a Jace, having to discard, but whatever, you can get back a Jace Wielder of Mystery, put it into your hand, and presumably you can like ramp up to a point where you can just kind of like do that, play a Jace, and then mill yourself. And with his static ability, if you draw a card with no other cards in your library, you win the game instead. And getting to mill cards, draw cards, kind of like goes hand in hand with like Cosmic Rebirth, which allows you to get back up the beanstalks, draw more cards, and so on. The sideboard looking pretty interesting. Core Firewalker is a card that like we rarely have seen in sideboards. I know, if you really respect Burn, like Core Firewalker is like one of the cards that you end up playing. But nice to see it here, making a return, sweet art and everything. Commandeer is an interesting card because you can exile 2 blue cards from your hand rather than paying its cost of 7, and you gain control of a target non-creature spell and you choose new targets for it. So you probably bring this in against like some of the big spell decks. You can take a Karn Liberated with it, which is like the dream of every person that's ever played Commandeer. You have Obsidian Charmaw, essentially in the same vein where you're like looking to play against Tron. They play like their, colorless land. You can like force them to play off and like double up, and then you blow up, the land that they didn't double up on, and then you're just absolutely kind of screwed with a pretty decent clock on as well. You have Force of Vigor, which unfortunately doesn't trigger the up the beanstalk, but still, a very good card nonetheless. You have Singleton Endurance, which probably works very well when you do have this package of like Cosmic Rebirth, things like that. Important to note too. I mean, like Core Firewalker and a card that we'll get into here in a second, Inevitable Betrayal, which is infinitely more interesting than really probably a lot of the other cards, like right up there with Commandeer. Core Firewalker is the only card that you're going to hit from the Cascade, so you know that like this card is probably pretty important. Probably not enough so that you would cut like up the beanstalks, but just something interesting to note. Of course, this card Inevitable Betrayal as well. I don't know if particularly you're supposed to cut your up the beanstalks so you have like maybe one in your deck, so then you almost guarantee hit Inevitable Betrayal, or if you're just supposed to keep the up the beanstalks in, and you play these betrayals because you know that you're probably going to draw some with the amount of cards that you draw from this deck, but it allows you to search your opponent's library for a creature card and put it onto the battlefield, so you can kind of get people that like the decks that are trying to get into like Archons of Cruelty. You can take their Archon, take their Emrakuls and things like that. Just kind of like other cards are like oddly good against like Tron and things like that. So yeah, the deck looks interesting. I'm excited to play it. We're gonna try to hopefully get into a really good match where we can kind of show off what this deck is trying to do. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get to the match. So here we are for game one. Looking at our hand, we have a way to play a beanstalk. We have some tempo. We're on the draw, unfortunately. So nothing really to kind of like interact with on turn one. I mean, we're kind of hoping we're not playing a scam. But I mean, we'd have some draws to it. So we're going to try this and just kind of see where it takes us. So we'll lead on the tap land first, just because then we can kind of fetch up one of our other lands and fetch up one of our other like untapped lands, get towards like domain for Leyline Binding, but then also be able to cast up the Beanstalk on turn two. Going Zagoth Triome unfortunately means that to start that we can't necessarily Leyline Binding or have the option to Leyline Binding unless we draw like another untapped land. Well, I guess that's a lie. We can play Flooded Strand and whatnot and get like one of those lands and still get to do it with the Triome, which I don't know if we plan to. Misty Rainforest, I mean, it could be like a mirror match. I don't know how important it is to get to that point. I mean, I guess, okay, so I guess if we're putting them on, an Up the Beanstalk deck, then I think I'm okay with like doing this, potentially missing on a second untapped land to kind of get Leyline Binding. We're looking at Triome, so this could just be Rhinos, which might end up working out like okay for us. Or not. Brainstone, okay. So this could just be like an off meta deck. Playing like Brainstone, like I'm definitely always wary of like people playing like Spike Brews and stuff like that. Fun on untapped land. Unfortunately means that we can't cast up the Beanstalk, which is definitely a misfire on my part. We could shock this in, but then we're kind of still in the same position where we can't cast anything. So I think we're stuck playing the Triome, saying go. So probably okay. If they want to spend their turn, cracking Brainstone or not doing anything, leaving up like Brainstone and whatnot, that's a little bit fine. So this might just be like some kind of like control deck. There we go, Shardless Agent. Force. I mean, I guess they have like counterspell. They still like counterspell, but I don't know if necessarily. Let's cast the Beanstalk. I don't know if like a deck that has like these many Triomes and stuff, they can afford to like necessarily play like counterspells and things like that. But That's where we be. And we're just set up to like Cascade. I mean, we're gonna hit a bunch of beanstalks, and if they ever decide to play anything relevant, well, we can Fury it away. This ley line binding as well, like any permanent that they play, like has the potential. Like we draw another land, we can Shardless Agent, get another up the beanstalk, and then ley line binding is just gonna be a draw too. So like while we probably want to make sure that we keep hitting our land drops, we even have like the option to play an Omnath, depending on like what they do. But leaving a mana up like that, I don't necessarily like it. But I think then we just kind of jam. We just jam our Cascade spells and do our thing. I mean, make them answer these beanstalks, because eventually we're just going to end up drawing a ton of cards. Cast. Let us draw more cards, draw another beanstalk, which means that this Shardless Agent can hit the last one, and I mean, we're just going to end up picking up a ton of cards. What do we get rid of? Because I kind of want to keep these cards. I don't know if... I'm going to ditch the Bloodbraid Elf. Oh, Terminus? Okay. I mean, sure. I don't know if... So we just cast it that turn. I mean, I guess they didn't know that we had that. We just played up the Beanstalk, played a tap land. So it's kind of weird that they would put a Terminus back on top and then Terminus away like these, unless... Brainstone. Alright, can we get a land? Cosmic Rebirth. Not doing a whole lot of like what we want to do necessarily. I think we're gonna try to hit hit a land off of this up the beanstalk. We draw the other one. Cute. Alright, so we have 8 cards. Sago, I guess. I mean, we could just like leyline binding this Brainstone, force them to crack it now. We draw 3 cards, potentially hit like another land. So I think I'm gonna be aggressive. This is probably wrong, but I definitely want to try to hit a land, and of course we miss because I am recording. All right, force them to do it now. My goodness, I mean, we are 17 cards in, and we've, with the Flooded Strand, found these lands. 1 or 2, like... Collection. Oh, there's playing 19 lands, which I guess makes sense. But still, like, I've definitely flooded harder in other games. So I don't know if we want I don't want these Fire Ices, and I guess I don't even technically need like the Shardless Agent. At this point, I just kind of want them to play like a permanent. I mean, if they play like a Creature Academy runs, this deck is interesting. Oh, more brain. My goodness. 3 Brainstones. Alright. Land, another Fury. So I don't know if they're playing counter spells. Obviously, they're playing like Terminus or something like that. Like they have other things. Like I could just. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cast this up the beanstalk, and then we can start casting like Furies and Solitudes and stuff to just kind of like get cards rolling. And then if there's ever a turn where they like tap low, I mean we're gonna draw 4 cards with all these. I want to say eventually we'll get to a point where we can just kind of like win the game from there. Like, so we know our opponent's going to draw 3, put 2 back, and then they have the option to Academy Ruins to put a Brainstone back on top, which does not look like they're going to do. Paying cost, so they're going to opt. Get past some of these cards. Oh, the top one. Alright. I'm assuming then they like both of them. Because if they didn't like one but like the other one, they just put the one that they like second from the top. Alright, let's fetch. Maximize the white sources. We'll get this. Play land. White, blue, green, red. Play an Omnath. Could have just done it with this and then gotten like triggers and stuff. Could have done more with it. Definitely fumbled the bag there. Yeah, I think we do it anyway. Then we do have the option to, if we need to with Solitude, do a bunch of things. Probably draw another land here. Hardcast Solitude. Well, at least this gives us something to like Fury. Fury, pitch Fury. And we'll draw 4 cards. And this is kind of like the power of like the Beanstalk deck, you know, before when it would play the Risen Reefs. Because then now you can just draw cards immediately without having to you can draw the cards without having to basically hope that the spell resolves. So there we go. We'll have to discard some cards, but that'll be okay. So we could. I'm gonna go here and here. We could, in theory, with like the steam vents, like we can fetch another land, steam vents, and if they tap low enough, we can, you know, take them off. Hopefully, like some kind of counter spell. But I mean, like they could just be playing these like removal options. So 4 mana, Jace the Mind Sculptor. Okay. So Jace is gonna brainstorm. Oh, they're gonna Fate Seal themselves. Okay. Pretty good. Plays around the Fury. You know, immediately dying to Fury. So let's see what happens here. Fetch. Breeding Pool tapped. Jace Wielder of Mysteries. So we can. I don't know what we can do here necessarily. I want them to tap low. So we can go. We can Cosmic Rebirth a Bloodbraid Elf. Like one of the red cards, like Fury doesn't matter. Like Fury. Then we can, or we can go like Rebirth, get back a land. Rebirth, get back a land. And then we just have like a ton of mana. Alright, it doesn't return to the battlefield tap. They put onto the battlefield. Or we could just do like Rebirth, get back ice, and then like ice their land, and then kind of go off from there. Rebirth, get back ice. Rebirth, get back ice. We have so ice, ice. We only have 2 mana, and we can't Jace. Alright, let's tapped. Pass the turn. Just kind of keep waiting, I guess. I mean, we're kind of playing into the game plan that we want. So they're gonna Academy Ruins, put a Brainstone on top. They can play and activate Brainstorm for 3 mana. They have 4 mana left over, and they have Jace Brainstorm. I don't know if they're playing Counterspell. So they draw Brainstone, play Brainstone. Huh, okay. Draws 3 cards with Jace's ability, puts 2 back on top. We will Cosmic Rebirth. Oh, we can't. It's a permanent card. Okay. I mean, still. Give back a Fury. Fury's going to let us draw a ton of cards. Come back to our hand. I guess if they decide to counter it, like, this will be pretty good. Like, if they counter this, like, I'm going to, like, ice whatever, like, other land, kind of go for it. I could, yeah, we'll just, no, ice Rafine's Tower. They can kind of cast whatever at this point, but I think we can just kind of go for it. So we can go Plains. Fury, pitch Fury. I want to make sure that we get to a point. Let's see, there we go. We have Leyline Binding. So we want to get to a point where like we can play Jace, and then if we just cast enough spells, like we can just kind of like muscle through what they have. Obviously, they have like a counter spell that's no good, but you know, it's just kind of like what we're playing to essentially. Play Jace. We have another Jace. We have all these lands. Get these guys over here. I don't know if this fetch land finds anything. So we can go Leyline Binding, draw some cards, and then we can get back going with Solitude. Would have liked to find another like white card to kind of pair with this. Have their own Leyline Binding. Yeah, I mean that's fine. Because then we can just get to Leyline Binding, their Leyline Binding, and continue to go from there. I'll take that. And if they have a way to like get rid of our own binding. So then they have to target this one. I guess here we can go. Alright, that's fine. You can take that binding. And then we'll go binding, draw some cards. I only have 2 cards left, so I mean, like, they could, in theory, have like a counter spell. But I feel better kind of like running them through all of these now when we can't go for it. We have a backup Jace. So I mean, we should be able to kind of like grind them out at this point. Do this, pop that. Wonder if we can. So we have 18 cards in our deck. We have 4, 8, 12, 16 cards that we can draw. And then mill ourselves. And we can do it at instant speed. So I think we can just pass. And if they do anything, we can try to win the game. Yeah, they crack Brainstone. Pitch this. So now we can just kind of win with this on the stack for 8, 12. Yeah, 4, 8, 12 cards. I mean, it's not going to matter. We can... pitch this. Just make sure we don't pitch another one of our cards. I mean, I don't think they're... I mean, they have... I guess if they are, you know, using the red for something, we haven't seen anything like that. So we'll just go that, pitch this. Draw cards. Essentially just hoping that they don't have anything to get rid of Jace. They don't have like Leyline Binding up or anything, so we'll draw a card from an empty library and win the game. Cool, awesome. So I don't know if they have anything that we necessarily want to commandeer. We're going to be on the draw, like Gemstone Cavern could be pretty good. I don't think we care about Core Firewalker. They have a colorless land that's slightly annoying, but I don't know if we care about that. I don't know if we really care about any of these cards. Endurance would be the one that would like strike me as like pretty interesting for the fact that you could just, you know, shuffle their graveyard to the bottom and kind of mess up their stuff. But I don't know if I want that. There's this Gemstone Cavern, like we could play this and essentially get ahead of them a little bit, which might be okay. They're probably a deck that we want to try to get ahead of. We haven't seen any counter spells or anything like that. I mean, I think we just want to get to like Beanstalks as fast as possible. And the fact that our win condition is a Jace is going to be pretty good. So Fury, I mean, all these cards, I think. No, we're playing another land. We probably want Bloodbraid. I'm not even sure what we cut. I'm gonna guess Omnath probably isn't very good in the deck that is playing like Terminus, Solitude, and all that. I mean, not a bad card to like bounce, but you know, all the other evoke elementals are pretty good as well. Even though they're basically used as like draw spells. And I don't like this hand at all. Go away. Alright, they mulligan to 6. We will also mulligan to 6. Do not like this hand. You know, I wish these Jaces would get out of my hand. Not particularly in love with this, but I will keep this. Based solely on the fact that we have Elorian revealed. We can go get our second land. Ice could potentially draw us into another land. You know, and we're on the draw too, so I think we can kind of... We're up a game, we're on the draw, we can take kind of a risk going forward. Plus the fact that we have Forest as like our one land means that we can Lorien revealed for our Jeskai Triome that of course escapes me at this moment in time. So then that way we can that way we have at least 2 or 4 different basic land types for our Leyline Binding. Rogern Triome, of course we're going to draw Beanstalk, yep, and immediately get punished for it, of course. How the story goes. But, you know, at least from here, even if we play like a Beanstalk this turn, it would just kind of open up like a Fury play, but like we still technically have the Fury play. We just have another 2 mana up, so if we drew another Beanstalk, which of course is probably what's going to happen. They are their own Beanstalk deck too. What in the world? Beanstone? Huh. That's insane. I have no idea what's going on over here. I thought I could have it locked down, but turns out I don't. But we're going to draw all our Bloodbraid Elves. Land? No. At least here now we have the option. They're probably going to leyline binding this, and we're going to be sad. Yeah, that's exactly what's going on. Yep. So we could just now get kind of ground out, but I don't think they would be playing like counter spells or anything like that. So I mean, we find another land. That'd be kind of nice. If we find like Zagoth, Triome, or whatever, we can leyline binding, get rid of this, get back our Beanstalk. Jace. I'll just leave a mana up. Beanstalk. Alright, well, let's try it again. They are playing counterspell. Okay, so we just kind of got lucky to either got lucky to not see it, or they did have it. Either got lucky to not see it, or they didn't have whatever it was. They didn't have counterspells in their main deck, and they kind of sideboarded into a control deck. Which, I mean, interesting in like the counterspell Brainstone up the Beanstalk that, you know, you're playing a lot of cards that don't necessarily trigger this, but who am I to talk? All these Bloodbraids and no lands to cast them. Alright, I think I've seen enough. I'm not willing to play out that second game. That's going to go pretty bad for us. So, going forward here, we know that they are some kind of counterspell deck, but I don't think we really have anything to do anything about it. We can commandeer their own leyline bindings, not like it really does much for us. We just click submit. I think we can grind out a control deck as long as we, you know, hit our lands and everything. So take the play. I don't think this is gonna. I don't think that's gonna do enough for us. This hand is pretty bad too. Like essentially just already looking for a second land off the rip. I'm gonna be aggressive. So that's probably like down these, keep these. We'll go this and pass. So we can go the Zagoth Triome. I kind of wish we had like the Teamer Triome. I don't think this deck plays a Teamer Triome. It's got Rogren and Zagoth, and I think we want to get Zagoth because no matter what, we kind of share with this, and we want green. So get that, and we end up getting the white. We'll stop on the upkeep. And at least now from hitting the Boseiju, we're going to be able to play a Shardless Agent, although I'd rather hold on to the Boseiju if possible, but we have a few draws before we have to decide that. Sure. See what they do with it. Bottom of card, they did not like what they saw. So in this, ice their land. Draw a card, draw a Beanstalk. So now we're not necessarily married to the idea of playing a Shardless Agent. We can wait. I would feel a lot better if we just drew a land, because then we would just kind of keep the pressure rolling. Alright, so the decision that could probably impact the rest of the game. So we play Boseiju. We could just completely eschew it and go to Fairy Time Raveler, and then they have to like main phase do their thing. And then like we can Boseiju and do whatever else. But I think we really want to try hard to like not hit a Boseiju land. Of course, that doesn't happen. So if I don't play this land and I wait, and we end up drawing a land, we Bloodbraid. And I don't think I want to do that yet. I think I'd rather miss, or miss, make my opponent think I don't have a land. And then if they decide that they're going to take their turn to, which I guess they still have to pay 2 mana for domain because they have green-red now. Green-red, blue-white, yeah, and they still need black to have full domain. If they want to take their turn to Leyline Binding this, which does not look like it, they're going to play their own Beanstalk. I'd rather just have the option to Boseiju this, at least, now, and like hope that I draw another land, which they are not going to come. So I guess now with like a route to getting multiple, or shardless, they're virtually tapped out. I mean, I'm assuming that they're not playing, what is it? Spell Pierce. So hope that we hit another land with this. If not, I guess not the worst case, because we can Leyline Binding, hit Beanstalk. We even have like Solitude. So we'll see. They're gonna fetch 2 Beanstalks. Should be pretty hard for our opponent to do a lot about them. But if they do decide to Leyline Binding now, I'll probably just fire off a Solitude for the sake of firing off a Solitude. Or draw another Beanstalk. So we could Teferi Time Raveler now. That's probably going to force the Leyline Binding. I think. We'll Beanstalk now. And I'm going to assume at some point it is going to maybe prompt a binding on one of these so they can get a card out of it. Oh, just counterspell. Okay. Now I think I want to, I definitely think I want to hit a land. Or attempt to hit a land. Perfect. Do not want to choose a target. I would like to keep this around because something tells me it might actually be relevant. There we go. We can go get our other Triome. They're going to be able to cast Leyline Binding anyway. So I mean, if they try to like end step bind, okay, if they try to end step binding one of our Beanstalks, then we can just go like fetch and do it. And I don't want to do it. I don't want to fetch with their fetch on the stack because then they can just do it in response, and then I don't have a window where I can only draw like one card essentially then from mine. If they're gonna do okay, they're gonna Brainstone. Oh, we're gonna make sure that we leave up what we can. And these Jaces aren't gonna do anything either. So here we go. Now if they want a binding like a Beanstalk, like that's kind of okay. We get Steam Vents. Bloodbraid. A little awkward doing like second main Bloodbraid. You know, E's what it is. Hit Teferi. Spell Pierce Teferi. Okay, so that makes second main phase Blood Braid a lot worse. 7. I mean, I guess so. We hit them to 7, then 2. So this is particularly bad, and definitely, I guess, more of a misplay than I thought. Because we can put them to 7, and then if we like drew a Fire and Ice, or even if we drew like another Pitch Elemental to kind of keep going, we could kill them with a Fire. I would say unlikely with 5 cards in hand that we do kill them from just that, but you know, definitely worth noting that I did mess up. Nothing new around here. I mean, chances are they do have, okay, they do have a Leyline Binding. It's a Miracle into Terminus. Oh, what exactly does Terminus do? I think it's just all creatures to the bottom. Put all creatures to the bottom of their owner's library. Wow. Okay. I mean, sure. Put them in any order. They didn't set that up either. That was just a natural, whatever. Well, I guess trigger mine. Draw all 4 Jaces. Do I guess I'm gonna hold one of their beans hostage. Or attempt to hold one of them hostage. Interesting game. Very interesting game. Yeah, and I can't cast a Jace. So I mean, we're basically going to be on like just the Jace plan. Which this is like super interesting. I guess setting up like Terminuses and whatever. You know, we worked through some spell pierces, a counter spell, or a spell pierce and a counter spell. Temporal Mastery? What is this? Alright. Yeah, they get to draw a card. I mean, I guess when you get to set up time walks and stuff, I mean, it's pretty good. So I can imagine we'll just kind of let them go through their thing. I think our path to winning is going to be probably finding a Teferi. I guess maybe I don't even know if bouncing a Leyline Binding is that good. I mean, we bounce like their binding, or like we could bounce ours and whatnot, but that doesn't really do much of anything. I'd set up another temporal mat, dude. This is gonna be like sick. Play enough Jaces, we can mill them out. Or I guess even let them continue to have Beanstalk, but I assume that they would also have like Jaces as like a win condition. I wonder how crazy it would be to like bounce my own binding, give them a Beanstalk to like draw a card, and then just kind of like binding other shit and just let them kind of like deck themselves. That would be pretty insane. Is that like a way that we can actually win? So no land or no temporal mastery. 3 mana to fairy. We bounce our Leyline Binding. Choose not to. They're at 9. Well, that makes all our other stuff pretty bad. Shardless, yep, that's bad. Leave up a white land. Let's Jace. Probably have Counterspell or like Spell Pierce. Could have played around Spell Pierce, and that's probably Activate Brainstone. Fetch, sure. I mean, there is a world where we get like enough like Blood Braids and we can just kind of run through them. Whatever cards they put back on top too, if this resolves, I'm assuming it's not. I can only assume that there's like a Spell Pierce or like a counter spell coming. Yep. Work through this. I guess like the best way that we're gonna do is be able to like get them on time. I mean, we have a million more. We have just Jace after Jace after Jace that we're gonna play. I guess looking for like a Fury if we can cast a Fury. The Beanstalk. Yep. Maybe might be able to get them to draw out. But I tell you what, they are definitely traveling up this Beanstalk a lot better than we are. Alright, so plus, no reason to take down on this. Especially when like you can just keep it out of like Fury range. Bloodbraid Elf. So we can play a Bloodbraid and attack, but I also don't. I mean, I guess it's it. I think it demands enough of an answer to where like we can. There we go. Let's tap you for red. Tap you. Tap you. Leave up white. Cast it with Jund colors. I will not like to cast a spell. Of course, it was our other Beanstalk. I mean, this. I mean, it's going to demand like counters. Do they've Crypt Subtlety? Top or bottom? I think at this point we put it to the bottom. I mean, we're probably going to lose this game, which is a little unfortunate. But at least, you know, it'll show that like I'm human. I'm prone to flaws. And as like some current thoughts, I guess, as I'm like playing this deck, I must have just gotten like extremely unlucky. I'm assuming 19 lands is like more than fine with a deck that can just kind of cast a bunch of big things for free, trigger these beanstalks and whatever. If you have a hand that has like a beanstalk or a way to even get a second one, you're probably in pretty good shape. I don't think it worked out that well for us. But I mean, aside from the fact that this whole match has been kind of like a grind fest, essentially, like trying to jockey for position. I wish that was like a subtle or not a subtlety, a solitude. So then they'd have to draw more cards. Do they have to draw a card? Yeah, you draw a card. All right, rebirth. Sure. I mean, let's go and get a. You can stop us from casting things at on your turn, but you can't stop us from drawing cards. Yes, I would like to put it on the battlefield. I would like to draw a card. Rebirth. So then we can rebirth our own Teferi. Use that. Bounce. We'll bounce our binding. Do we want to do that? We can draw a card with ours. I mean, I guess, okay, so we'll do this. Like, I think we can find a way to cobble together a win if we just have enough beanstalks, like, stick around. Do that, pass the turn. So they're going to draw some cards. That's fine. We'll yield through the rest of my turn, and then we'll yield to their end step and get a land out of our deck. We know that we're probably not resolving a Planeswalker, but we're going to get to a point where we can like resolve 2 spells. Oh, I want that stop. Please and thank you. Until the end step. 18 cards in hand, and yeah, we're kind of expecting this. They don't have necessarily a way to win the game, and I don't know if, I'm assuming that they can somehow loop Brainstones, but then they have to have enough cards in their hand to be able to do it. So, I mean, as long as we can get back up on clock, I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, honestly, I'm kind of whatever about this at this point. I mean, Jaces are essentially going to come down and they're going to try to stop, or they're going to just try to mill you at this point. I mean, there's subtleties and stuff. We know that there's subtleties, but I don't know if we're like super worried about them anymore at this point. They got to discard some cards. They got to figure out what the heck they're going to do. We're going to figure out what the heck we're going to do. Solitude. Unfortunately, not that good now, but no, we play the Jace game at this point. Like, cast Jaces and just try to work through, whatever counter spells and things like that. I mean, we can't beat any more counter spells. They should have like 2 left in their deck. Chances are they're going to be able to find them. I guess we can go. This is a way that we could technically win the game, is like Shardless Agent. I mean, they have subtleties and stuff. Like, they're going to play them anyway. I think that we want to try and... What? Hold on, what? As soon as you're starting the server as part of an ongoing maintenance, your current matchup will be a draw and should begin sideboarding. What? Oh my goodness. Alright, well, huh. Wow, so it restarted our game? So wait, what happened? Are we just not gonna... Alright, I gotta get out of here. Like, that's crazy. And alright, alright, that was weird. Let's go to the wrap up. Let's kind of just figure this out real quick. So here we are with the wrap up of whatever the heck just happened. So if you watched through the entirety of it, you saw that game 3 we basically got kicked out and forced to restart due to like moto maintenance, which is something that I've not seen happen, or at least it has not happened to me before. So kind of going over that game, I don't know if we would have won. Obviously, like there's enough like ambiguity where like our opponent could have won. They could have subtletied our Shardless Agent there, and then like they have like a clock in play, but then they're really kind of stuck like not casting any more spells, just because like their beanstalks are going to force them to draw cards, and like everything else in their deck draws cards. There is a world where we could have probably cobbled together some kind of way to win that game, but we won't know, and our opponent conceded the match. So while it is not a win the way that we would have wanted it to, we technically won the match and stuff. So overall thoughts on the Beanstalk deck is that I think it's just a lot of fun. I mean, Cascade as a mechanic is like abysmal. It's broken, it's busted. They need to do something about it in modern, period outright. That being said, it is a lot of fun to play a spell and then cast another spell off of it. And then drawing cards also is just, one of the biggest satisfactions you can get playing Magic anyway, and just getting to do it like effortlessly. And I mean, game one, we won a game of Magic in a way that I don't think anybody should win games of Magic, but it was kind of fun just getting to pile all our beanstalks into play and then just like instant speed, win the game just by casting solitudes and pitching white cards so that we can draw ourselves out with Jace Wielder and Mysteries. So uh, definitely an interesting deck. It's the second most played deck in the meta for a reason. Only 15, 16% behind Rakdos Scam over the last I think month, according to MTG Goldfish. So I mean, definitely a deck worth trying out and playing. I had a lot of fun, playing it. I could definitely see playing more of it like in the future. It's just super grindy, and in those games where even people try to like two for one you just get so much value having more beanstalks in play that your two for ones end up being like four for two. I mean, just getting to trade two cards for like cards on your opponent's board and you get to draw two, three, four cards is insane. And just going forward, this deck, if something only happens to Scam and we don't see anything happen to Beanstalks, you could definitely see a uptick in Bowmaster. I think Bowmaster is just like the default like best card to be playing against decks that want to kind of cantrip and kind of get value from their free spells by playing up the Beanstalks, because it is probably one of the best, probably not probably is one of the best card draw engines to be playing. While the uh, Risen Reef is kind of cute and like you could potentially ramp and stuff like that. This just is like, hey, we can just hit our land drop every turn. That's fine. We don't need to play 2 3 extra lands a turn. Like we can just play one land a turn and eventually just kind of like grind you out, and make it impossible for you to win games. So definitely going forward, this deck is going to be a threat. You need to be prepared for it. And whether this is just an oddball version that just happens to be playing Jace, or this is now the norm for it, I actually really like the Jace Wielder Mysteries. I do not like drawing four of them like we did in that game three, or continuing to have two glued to my hand throughout game two. But it is what it is, and in a deck that draws as many cards as it does, you are going to see a lot of redundancy in having a lot of cards that are just four ofs. I mean, you're seeing like every card in here minus the Lorien Revealed and the two Omnath are all playsets. So that's gonna do it for me in this video. I hope you all enjoyed the oddity that was the end up being Beanstalk mirror. That is pretty interesting to say the least. So hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like on the video. Comment down below what deck that you want to see played in any other matches, formats, things like that. Always open to trying new decks and things like that. And of course, subscribe to the channel and ring notification bell. All easy ways to support me and my content. That's going to do it for me. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all in the next one.